Hello students and welcome to our flipped classroom. Today we are going to be talking about common verbs followed by both infinitive and gerund, okay? And to get started, you can take a look at these two girls, these two twins in the picture here. And one girl says, I like learning. The other girl says, really? I like to learn too. So here's an example of the verb like followed by a gerund and then also followed by an infinitive, right? I'd like you to take just a minute and think about, do these sentences have the same meaning or a different meaning? Okay. Hopefully by the end of this flipped classroom, you'll be able to answer that question. Okay, I'm not going to give you the answer. All right, so here's a few more sentences here. Some of the verbs are followed by infinitives, others by gerunds. I'd like you to pause the video and think about the question in blue. Which pairs have basically the same meaning? Okay. Again, pause the video because I'm going to give you the answers in just a moment. Okay, so if you said that number 1, they both have the same meaning, that's correct. And also one more, number 4. Okay. So it began to snow or it began snowing, same meaning. We love to walk in the snow. We love walking in the snow, same meaning, okay? The ones that have a different meaning are remember and stop, okay? So one thing to remember, when we use the verb remember, if we can follow it by both the infinitive or the gerund, but it changes the meaning of the sentence. We're going to talk about how in the slides that come next. Same thing with stop. It changes the meaning to use infinitive or gerund, okay? All right, so here's the easy part. Here's the good news. These are verbs that are followed by both infinitive and gerund, and whether we use infinitive or gerund, it doesn't matter. There's no difference, no change in the meaning, okay? So begin, start, like, love, hate, can't stand, continue, and prefer, right? Can't stand has a similar meaning to hate, right? Like, I can't stand cleaning the toilet. Oh God, I can't stand cleaning the toilet. It's the worst chore in the entire house, right? I hate it. Okay, so here's a few example sentences. It started to rain has the same meaning as it started raining. I love playing the guitar has the same meaning as I love to play the guitar, right? No difference. And he continued to talk means the same as he continued talking, okay? Now, one suggestion I have for remembering that these verbs are followed by both infinitive or gerund is to group them together into verbs that have a similar meaning. For example, begin and start both have a similar meaning, right? Like and love both have a similar meaning. And hate and can't stand also have a similar meaning. So if you can remember those groups, you might be able to remember, oh, okay, these groups are followed by infinitive or gerund. And I'll leave the other two, continue and prefer. I'll leave that to you to think about which one of the 3 groups that I circled in orange do you think that could fit into, okay? All right, so here's the bad news, or maybe the not so great news. Some verbs, as we said, like stopped, change the meaning, whether we use an infinitive or gerund. So Mr. Peterson stopped smoking does not have the same meaning as Mr. Peterson stopped to smoke. Now you can pause the video and take a minute to think about it. What is the difference in meaning? Do you know the difference in meaning already? Okay, I'm going to give you the answer in just a second. Okay, so the first one is followed by a gerund. When we use stop plus a gerund, this means quit or to stop an action for a longer period of time, not just temporary, okay? So for example, Mr. Peterson stopped smoking. This means that he quit smoking. Good for Mr. Peterson. He's a healthy guy. He realized that smoking is bad for your health, and he said, I'm going to stop smoking. Maybe this was his New Year's resolution, right? The second one, Mr. Peterson stopped to smoke. At the bottom of the screen, we can see that stop plus infinitive means stop one activity in order to do another activity. We call this an infinitive of purpose, right? So it tells us what is the purpose? What are we going to do next? So for example, maybe Mr. Peterson was taking a walk down the street and he realized, oh, it's a nice sunny day. It's a great day. It's a great time to have a cigarette. So Mr. Peterson stopped walking. He stopped his one activity, which was walking, in order to do what? In order to smoke a cigarette. So here, Mr. Peterson is not such a healthy guy. He stopped his walk in order to smoke. All right, so when we see that infinitive, it means stop one activity in order to do another activity. Okay. Here's a little practice for you. Again, I'd like you to stop the video and try to fill in the blanks with either the infinitive or the gerund of the verb in parentheses. I'll give you the answer in just a second. All right, so Mrs. P stopped asking us to check our answers for Azar because she wants us to go over the answers in the class. Remember at the beginning of the semester, I wanted you guys to check your answers in Azar, and then we realized, hey, this is not working out so well. Let's check the answers in the class, right? So we can say, I stopped asking us to check the answers for a longer period of time, right? This is not stopping one activity in order to do another one temporarily, right? Number 2, Nancy stopped eating red meat. This means she quit. She quit eating red meat after she watched the documentary. And then number 3, when I saw my student at the rack, I stopped to chat with her for a few minutes. This one's really important. I use this one a lot. Maybe I was tutoring at the rack center, right? You guys know that I tutor there. So I stopped that activity. I stopped tutoring. Why? In order to chat with the student, right? All right, very good. So this is only for stop. Other verbs besides stop also can take the gerund and infinitive, and they also change the meaning, but in a different way. So remember these only for the verb stop. Another verb that we can use this is remember, and similarly is forget. So when we use remember or forget followed by the gerund, this means remember or forget the fact that something happened in the past. Kind of like a memory. I like to think this one like thought bubbles coming out of someone's head. You can see in the picture here, this man is, he remembered playing with his cats at home. So he has a memory of himself playing with the cats. Or we could say he forgot. He forgot playing with the cats. This means he doesn't have the memory, right? Maybe he did it, but he doesn't have the memory of doing it, okay? The second one, remember or forget, followed by the infinitive, means remember or forget to perform a responsibility, duty, task, etc. So for this one, I always like to think of a checklist, right? At the beginning of each day, I always write a to-do list. These are things that I must do throughout the day, tasks that I must do, responsibilities that I have to do, duties that I have to do, right? And as I check each of these off, right, I can say, oh, I remembered to grade the student's homework. Oh, I need to remember to meet Angelica after the class, right? I don't want to forget to post the flipped classroom video, okay? So we can use remember and forget to talk about responsibilities, chores, and tasks, okay? Here's a few examples for you. I remember seeing the Great Wall of China for the first time. It was unbelievable. I forgot telling John that he could borrow my truck. When he asked me for the keys, I had no idea what he was talking about. Both of these talk about a memory, right? In the first one, I have a memory of myself at the Great Wall. And when I saw it, I'll never forget this because I cried, right? So I remember seeing the Great Wall, and I'll never forget seeing the Great Wall. Here I'm going to use a gerund because it's a memory. In the second one, I forgot telling John This sentence means I told John, maybe last week, I told John that he could borrow my truck, but I forgot. I don't have a memory of telling him this, right? And so when John asked me, hey, can I have the keys? Remember, I'm going to borrow your truck. I didn't know what he was talking about because I couldn't remember, right? I didn't have that memory. So both sentences 1 and 2 are talking about this memory, remembering the memory or forgetting the memory, the fact that something happened, okay? In the next few, we use the infinitive. Number 1 says, I remembered to turn off the oven before I left. Remember, maybe this was on my checklist. I didn't want to forget it. And then I remembered to do it. Very good. I'm proud of myself, right? Number 2 says, I never forget to brush my teeth. This is always on my checklist. I never forget to brush my teeth before I go to sleep. And number 3, maybe this is something your teacher would say to you. Don't forget to watch the flipped classroom this weekend. So in other words, I'm telling you, make sure to put it on your to-do list, right? Make sure that you do this, okay? So again, try to remember and forget together because their gerund and infinitive have a similar meaning, okay? So this isn't all the rules, unfortunately. I'd like you to read chart 14-5 on page 311 very carefully in your Azar grammar book. There's a few more rules about other verbs that change when we use the infinitive or gerund. And I want you to read those carefully and look at those examples. Maybe think of an example of your own and write it. And if you want to send that to me in a message on Canvas, you can do that and I'll check it, okay? Number 2, do Azar, page 311 to 314, exercise number 19 and 22. These will help give you a good idea and a good feeling of how these verbs change or don't change the meaning. So make sure that you're looking back to the chart 14-5 in order to do that successfully. And finally, number 3, I have a couple of exercises for you here in the flipped classroom. So I'm going to show them to you in just a moment. They're exercise number 1 and then exercise number 2. Please copy the sentences down in your notebook and write the answers in your notebook, okay? So I'm going to show them to you, and then that's the end of the flipped classroom. Here's exercise number 1. Again, you can pause the video and then write down the sentences. And here's exercise number 2, okay? Thanks for watching, students, and I'll see you in class.